opening for this?
Glad to, Mr. Chairman. If there is no objection from the members and subject to Executive Order number 78, Law Enforcement and Public Safety Committee members have determined that it is necessary that this meeting be held electronically to protect the health, safety, and welfare of the public due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Are there any objections to this finding by the board? Let the minutes reflect the board has made the determination to conduct this meeting electronically. Mr. Chairman, I believe the next order is roll call.
All those present, please press your present button. Showing present, Sean Aiello, Jennifer Mason, Dwight Jones, Matt Williams, Steve Smith, and Beth Wathers. First motion before us concerns the Juvenile Court, number 53500, for a total of $685,242. Is there a motion? Dwight Jones motion, Beth Wathers the second. Any discussion or explanation?
It's pretty straightforward. The only thing that has been added is the longevity. I had 2 employees that crossed over to the 6th year, so that made it go up more than just the $50. And that's
Thank you, Brenda. Any other discussion on that? Seeing none, we're ready to vote. Vote passes 6 yes, 0 no.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next item is 54990, other emergency management, law enforcement, public safety, total $25,000. Dwight Jones to motion, Jennifer Mason to second. Any explanation or discussion?
Mr. Chairman, this is Bill Jorgensen.
Go ahead, Bill.
Thank you. There is no change in the other emergency management line, and if you so wish, Director Horton is on here and can explain why we have an LEPC and what their function is.
Are there any questions for either Todd or Bill on this?
Mr. Chair, I'd be interested in that explanation, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So local emergency planning committees were developed as part of the Emergency Planning and Community Right to Know Act. And it primarily, at the time it was created, dealt with planning regarding hazardous materials that were produced or used within a community, and required the planning for those chemicals and the notification of the public that those chemicals exist and what to do in times of emergency. Over the last several years, the local emergency planning committee has expanded to be an all hazards planning group and not just specifically for hazardous chemicals in one's jurisdiction. So we have a local emergency planning committee that typically meets once a month. Obviously, that's not been occurring on that regular time frame due to COVID, but we have restarted with our virtual meetings for the LEPC. And it's made up of community members as well as members of our law enforcement, fire, EMS sectors, our partners like our nonprofits and our faith-based organizations, as well as our county and city departments. And we meet once a month to plan for emergencies that happen within our community. And also we do exercises. We try to do at least 3 exercises a year, 1 per quarter. And the quarter that has the Williamson County Fair, we do not do an exercise just because we use that as a 4th exercise in and of itself. And these exercises are designed to test the planning efforts that we have put forth in the previous few months to ensure that our efforts are yielding positive results for what we would hope they would accomplish. Happy to answer any questions about that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Todd. Any other comments, or are we ready to vote? Seeing none, please vote. Vote passes 6 yes, 0 no. Next item is for the Office of Public Safety. Total is $7,219,536. Dwight Jones to motion. And Beth Walters to second. Is there any explanation or discussion on this item?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman, I have probably quite a few explanations.
The floor is yours.
Thank you, sir. Hopefully, all of you received, I tried to do a one-pager. It turned out being 4 pages that I sent out earlier today, highlighting some of the areas in the proposed budget that we'll be talking about tonight. And I just want to emphasize again that we've spent a lot of time in the last year working on continuity of operations and continuity of government. It's in the forefront with the events that have taken place over the last year with the tornado in March of 20 that affected us, even though the tornado didn't touch down in Williamson County. It affected phone lines, internet access, and then the bombing on Christmas Day, and not to even mention the pandemic. So I think I'd probably start with on page 2 of our budget, and that is the communications line, line 5307. And it we're requesting a $23,000 increase in that line. And it is primarily related to continuity of operations and continuity of government. There's explanations in the 4-pager that I sent out, multiple different paths for us to receive phone calls and from different vendors. So as you'll see in there, there's, for an example, $6,000 a year for an AT&T, 23 phone lines coming in. They're called a PRI. Also, the same amount of money from another vendor, Windstream, and then IP access satellite service for a new tower trailer that we're putting online, which is designed for, again, continuity of operations and continuity of government. That item is new, plus the Wave on Cloud item, which is $3,900 a year, which allows us to have access to our public safety radio system on a smartphone, and also allows us to create talk groups outside of the radio system for emergency responders to be able to communicate in. And then we're bringing on 2 new stations, which I'm glad that's coming to fruition, and that would be at on Long Lane at Station 7, our partnership with the City of Franklin, an EMS station there, in partnership with the City of Brentwood. We'll be bringing online a new EMS station on Heritage Way off Concord Road. And I would be glad to take any questions about line 307 if there are any. I think Commissioner Smith may have a question.
Bill, I'm sorry, I didn't have a question about that particular line item, but what caught my eye, and I'm sure you may be prepared to talk about that, is the dramatic increase in the total for maintenance agreements.
Oh, yes, that's next. Yes, sir. We can move on to maintenance agreements. Well, actually, before that, we have operating lease payments, which is line 533000. and there's some adjustments there. It's actually going down, and that covers copiers and trash collection. Then the other operating lease payment line is about the same, but those are contractual agreements for renting, leasing space at tower sites. Moving on to maintenance agreements, that is a 95% increase, and the bulk of that is our share of the maintenance for the countywide public safety radio system. So that radio system's been in the works for the last 5 years, and it finally went online a year ago, July. Once that year passes of warranty, and then we're obligated by contract to pay maintenance on that starting July of 21, which would be fiscal year 22. We also share that expense with the city of Franklin and the city of Brentwood. So that is shared. I think we pay 55.7%, and then the city of Franklin and Brentwood pay the other remainder. That maintenance covers software upgrades, and they monitor the system 24/7. That system is used by just about everybody in Williamson County, including school system, all of our public safety partners, City of Franklin, solid waste, county solid waste, animal control, and just about everybody in the county that uses push-to-talk two-way government agencies are on that radio system. I hope that answers your question about that. That is the biggest part of that increase.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you for the question. On page 4, I can hit on some of these other ones. The Everbridge high-speed notification system, and I'll probably call on Director Horton to talk about the $13,000 increase on that system for the database updates.
Thank you, Bill. The Everbridge high-speed notification system is a system that we use for 2 different purposes. One, to alert employees of the City of Franklin, City of Brentwood, and Williamson County government in times of need. The second reason that we use that is to notify the public for various pieces of information. We've had that system for a number of years, and that is a 3-way cost share between those 3 entities for that solution. And we had realized that it had been a long time since the phone numbers were updated in that system. So this year we took advantage with the pandemic of updating our contact list, and we were able to add 250,000, almost 250,000 new contacts, primarily in the form of residential phone lines or cellular phone lines. And so this $13,000 addition to our cost that we experience annually would be to up that contact list each year so that we're reaching the most residents that we can reach in our community in times of disaster or other situations.
Matt, did you have a question?
Yes, I did. Going back to the maintenance cost real quick, 95% jump, a little more than $500,000 is a pretty substantial jump. I think I'm reading here in the notes, but how much of that is going to be an ongoing recurring cost versus a one-time cost?
That's a great question, Commissioner. And I think on page 7, at the end of the maintenance agreement lines in the budget submittal, total net increase in the line is $635,641. Reoccurring costs would be $485,917, and one-time costs out of that total 635, one-time costs are $149,724.
And I mean, the Cliff Notes version of it, what have we installed in our operations, within the recent years that's contributing to that majorly, for the majority of it?
Well, the majority of it is 508,000. So let me back up a little bit because we're talking about $485,000 reoccurring costs, and just the radio system alone is 508 in reoccurring costs. Well, that math says that the reoccurring costs are less than just the radio system. So we went through maintenance agreements. We went through all of our lines and scrutinized those. As you can see in the budget detail, is we have each piece of software, each maintenance agreement, each phone line, all the way through the budget, detailed out in great detail. So we also found some savings within the maintenance agreement line going forward, but most of the costs are related to the Motorola system, which is just a little over $500,000. And go ahead. I'm sorry, sir.
No, I'm curious. And how long has that system been in use?
July of 21, we will have used up our 1-year warranty. So we will have been on the system 12 months this coming July. And it's taken 5 years to put in and provision and install and get everybody switched over to it. So we've been using it now for 9 months, 8 months. And it was a $26 million project shared between the county, the city of Franklin, and the city of Brentwood.
When we decided to move forward with this, did we have an understanding that the ongoing maintenance cost with that system was going to be what it is?
Yes, sir. We knew that day one, 5 years ago, how much the ongoing cost was going to be.
Okay, thanks.
Commissioner Walters?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Bill, correct me if I'm not saying this adequately, but wasn't this integral to creating more comprehensive, more, like you talk about, continuity? Communication is so key. We had to go this direction to modernize our technology to be literally on the same wavelength. Is that correct?
Yes, Commissioner, and I appreciate the word wavelength when we're talking about the radio system.
This is a novice trying to speak the language, Bill.
That's great. Yes, many, actually further back than 5 years ago, the mayor created the Public Safety Task Force. And one of the recommendations from the Public Safety Task Force was to create a framework and a governance model for a countywide radio system. And the radio system, all those costs were shared between the city of Franklin and Brentwood. And then there's the Williamson County Joint Communications Network Authority Board, which was created through resolution through the county commission and through the boards at Franklin and Brentwood. And they participate, and that board meets once a month and manages the radio system. It's also connected to Nashville. So between Nashville and Williamson County, we've got a 23 site public safety grade radio system, which has cleared up dead spots. It's allowed our wavelengths to get into areas where we never were before, where we had first responders and the public in danger of not being able to communicate. So that was a big deal, and we've cleared all that up, and the system is performing above expectations. And it has a lot of redundancy, and it is probably the premier radio system in the state of Tennessee right now.
Thank you very much.
Bill, this is Commissioner Williams. Actually, one more question.
Yes, sir.
If I remember correctly, I believe this radio system also allows us to speak interagency as well, right? Like, I mean, can't you speak with Tennessee Highway Patrol, speak with various different parts of the state as well?
Yeah, so they use a similar radio system. And yes, there are talk groups we can go to today on all the radios in Williamson County and talk to other partners. We are working on a more permanent connection between the state and the Middle Tennessee Regional Radio System, and working with our partners in Nashville. I think that connection has happened already. But yes, we can communicate, and there are so many success stories with this radio system, even from an EMS unit in College Grove on a portable radio being able to talk to the ER at Vanderbilt or St. Thomas. I forget what the most recent one was, but there's just some great success stories that I'd be glad to share with you at another time as we put those together as people are using the system.
Yeah, appreciate the refresher. That's what I thought, because I remember when we voted to fund that system, that was one of the big benefits of it, is it allowed us to speak literally across the state, across different agencies, and just much more interconnected. So appreciate it. Thank you.
It is, and I think the word that we probably used at the time and still use it today is interoperability. Mr. Chairman, if it's okay, I'll continue on.
Please.
Thank you. The next item, which is on page 4, is the Web EOC. We are contractually, the contract for maintenance is going up, and we did add a mapping piece to that system. And I don't know if Director Horton has any information on that mapping piece. I don't want to put you on the spot on that one.
No, so what the mapping piece does is simply allow us to interface the Web EOC application where we document information. We can tie it to a physical location on the map when that's applicable, and display that map out to our community partners and emergency responders, so we can show things like roads closed, shelter locations, damage assessments that are being conducted, and a host of other information that would be very useful in times of disaster.
Thank you, Director. And that's a $5,400 yearly increase. The next item is workforce management software, and that is a $75,000 one-time cost that we're proposing. And again, I would ask Director Horton to explain and talk about that.
So as part of our accreditation efforts, we have the need to document various things in certain ways, as well as to be in compliance with the standards that are produced by the accreditation model, training that has to be undertaken, and overall workforce management. So we are actively seeking permission to move forward with an application that will allow us to provide those things in a single software solution.
Thank you, Director. The next item is Bold Planning Systems. We're asking for a $900 yearly increase, and that's on page 6. And that increase is due to the Williamson County schools opening up new schools, and that licensing for that software, for our Coop and Cog software, is based on the locations, the facilities. The next item, which is on page 7, which is a one-time cost to Bold Planning. I will ask again that Director Horton talk about the Coop and Cog expanding that existing system.
Thank you, Bill. So as we look at Coop and Cog, Bill mentioned earlier, one of our primary focuses this year again is continuity of operations and continuity of government. It's extremely important at all times that our government is able to function and that our essential services are able to be provided to our community. And during times of disaster, it's even more important that those services be available. And so what the Coop and Cog planning effort does is ensures that you know exactly how you're going to respond when your normal workplace is no longer an opportunity for you to be at, or a resource that you would normally use is no longer available. So using the example of the severe weather that is coming through parts of Alabama, Mississippi, and moving into our state, These storms have already produced multiple tornadoes across Alabama and Mississippi, and hopefully the impact will lessen as it moves further east. But a number of communities have had devastating results to county and city governments as a result of these tornadoes, and they have found themselves with no plan in place of where they would relocate and how they would restore those critical and essential services. So this software, while we have COOP and COG plans presently for many of the departments throughout the county, they are in a variety of different formats. It was really up to each individual department to be able to provide the information that they thought was necessary for their COOP and COG plannings, but there's never been a comprehensive solution that ensures that we're collecting the same information from all departments in a way that's easily understandable and easily digestible. And so if we thought for a second that we would have to vacate the administrative complex and relocate all of those services to another facility because that building became uninhabitable, a system like this and a software that has these functionalities in it would allow us to be able to access these plans anywhere that we have internet access. And it would immediately tell us how many phones that we would need versus how many that we might have on hand, what size spaces that we would need, and the number of people that we would need to house for the different departments throughout the county, and really just give us an overall comprehensive picture of the things that we needed to do, where these alternate sites would be located, and where we could easily restore the services, again, that the community would so desperately need. So that's what this software would be able to provide us.
Thank you, and I hope I'm not being repetitive here. This has been a proven solution. We've been using it with the schools now for a few years, and that's why we're recommending and proposing that we expand the system. I think that is it for maintenance agreements. If there's no questions there, I'll move on if that's okay, Mr. Chairman.
Please move forward.
Thank you. The next item would be on page 9, electricity. That has a 7.4% increase in our electrical costs. Most of that's related to the 2 new stations coming online, and we'll have to share the costs on those 2 facilities with the city of Franklin and Brentwood. We will be billed for those. Diesel fuel and gasoline. There's no increase there. What we're doing is moving money from gasoline to diesel fuel. I believe that's what we're doing there. So that's why you see a decrease in gasoline and an increase in diesel fuel. We're just moving some funds around. On page 10, natural gas. Again, we're bringing on 2 new stations. And then on everything is 0, staying the same until we get to page 12. And we've got this probably stood out a little bit, a 61% increase in water. We projected that the water for the Public Safety Center through what we're being billed from the Highway Department. They are billing us because we share a meter, and we just put in a second meter so that we can get an accurate count of how much water we use at the Public Safety Center. Actually, we think that it's going to be around $20,000, but I think with the irrigation system and with the reduction in the amount of people that have been in the facility, and we'll probably see that reduction into next year for a little ways, that we believe it'll come in around 15,000. So the increase in water is basically due to the Public Safety Center and getting those numbers correct, and then also the addition of 2 new stations. That's all I have for the operational budget for public safety, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much for that thorough explanation. Are there any other questions before proceeding to a vote? Commissioner Walters?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Bill, I noticed in the very top that this will be a year that we're not donating to the Nolensville Volunteer Fire Department. Can you confirm for the committee, as we spoke, that you've been in contact with the town of Nolensville's town administrator and the transition that's occurring?
Yes, I can if you want to talk about that. And I know that's a separate item on the agenda. Would you like for me to wait for that next or talk about it now?
If you can hold for the fire department section on that question.
Yeah, we can wait on that. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, seeing no further questions, let's proceed to a vote. Vote passes 6-0. Next section is fire departments requesting $426,366 towards their budget. Dwight Jones to motion, Steve Smith the second. Explanation, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a reduction this year of $67,993. That reduction comes from, our recommendation is not to donate any more funds to the Nolensville Volunteer Fire Department for year FY21. The town of Nolensville is starting a combination department, which should be going live on July 1. They've already hired a fire chief, and they've been hiring fire leadership for that department. With that department going live, we will be, and we're already working on a lease agreement for the existing station, where we will be working on an interlocal for the town of Nolensville to still provide fire protection out into the county outside the town. And we'll be working through, and we have been working with the new town administrator, Victor Lay, and the fire chief, David Windrow, on that transition. And we're having great conversations on that. So the nonprofit, you will probably be seeing in June a resolution to unrecognize the nonprofit, since they won't be providing fire service after July 1. And then that interlocal also probably will be coming in front of you in May. I still need to talk to Bobby about that. He's probably wondering when I'm going to communicate to him about it, since he's on the call, to allow the town, or to enter into agreement to allow the town to provide fire protection out into the county. We have been communicating with the town about this, and I would expect that the nonprofit also knows that we will not be donating funds to them starting in fiscal year FY22. And I hope that answers your question, Commissioner Lathers.
Thank you, Bill.
All right, any other questions for Bill? Seeing none, let's proceed to a vote. Vote passes 6-0. Final matter on the agenda is ambulance service, requesting $1,943,624. Dwight Jones to motion, Beth Lathers to second. Explanation, please.
Yes, this is Julie Miller. Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
There. Hi. Thank you. In your packet, you should have seen the letter of intent for Williamson Medical Center to continue the operations of emergency medical services. This 1.9 million has that is the same amount that we have been getting since 2008. And there are financials in the packet if anybody has any questions for me.
Seeing no questions, I presume we're ready to vote. Oh, sorry, I see Commissioner Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Given the length of time that this has been a flat amount that the county has contributed, what has been the change in the volumes handled by the ambulance service over that period of years without an increase from the county?
Right. That is a great question, Steve. I appreciate it. And I will have Alan speak to that. But the other thing I wanted you to note in my letter, since 2008, in order to meet the volumes that Alan will talk about, we have added 46 additional full-time licensed personnel. But I'll let Steve talk, or I will let Alan talk in regards to the volumes.
All right, thank you, Julie. Thank you, Commissioner Smith, for the question. First of all, audio check. We good?
You're coming through.
Excellent, thank you. Okay, to answer the question directly, in 2008, year 2008, EMS ran 9,122 calls. 2020 was an unusual year for us as far as, I'll give you the volume number, but there's some interesting things behind it. 2020 was the first year that beginning in February, we began transitioning to becoming the provider for Spring Hill. We typically have a 6% increase in volume every year, and we were expecting an additional 14% increase in volume just from adding Spring Hill. So we anticipated or projected 20% increase in volume for this past year. We actually had a 9% because we had a huge drop in call volumes due to COVID-19. So you can expect somewhere between I would say probably a 10 to 15% increase in call volume over the next year. And we're already seeing our volumes back to pre-COVID and going beyond. But the call volume for 2020 was 17,975, even with that having that dip in the volume, was nearly 20,000 calls versus 9,122 in 2008. Were there any other questions?
Thank you for that update. Any further questions? All right, seeing none, let's proceed to a vote. All right, 6 yes, 0 no. Thank you all for appearing on this to explain the budgets. All your hard work on this is very evident on the explanations and the extraordinary detail you've put into this. Thanks for being here, and we are adjourned.